Hi everybody, this is Katie and I want to go through the assignment with you very quickly and kind of get you started. I just pasted this in Word. I'll format it really nice and have it in the assignment file so that you know exactly what to do. But I am going to grab my small basic and give you some kind of direction and explain the assignment here. So we're going to save this assignment as, this is your homework file, so I'm going to call it Chapter 3 assignment or whatever you want. You're going to do this program on your own, and it must use modules. So remember when you're starting this out, and it says this to do this in the program, include your basic header information. You know, your name, your date, program description, all that jazz at the beginning. Then you want to initialize your variables. Then you want to, kind of make a main module. And right below here, do your calls to your modules. And then when that's done, you want to put one module here, below, and lastly you have your sample output. Okay, so let's look, that's your basic structure. Header, name, date, description, initialize all your variables here, do your calls here, and then however many modules this program calls for, you're going to put under there, and then you have sample output. So here's the assignment. A nutritionist who works for a fitness club helps members evaluate their diets. I'm going to help you with the pseudocode real quick. So I got to grab a piece of paper because I'm going to write down these things as I'm reading. I haven't read this program yet. Well, I kind of did. I think it's a good program. It's better than the ones in our book, so we're going to do this one. So we evaluate our diets. Oh, great. As part of the evaluations, she asks how many grams of fat and carbohydrates. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm not going to start over because hopefully you're laughing at me. And how many carbohydrates they've consumed for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack from that day. So we're going to have a variable for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. And we want to take in the fat, grams of fat, and the carbs for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. Both fat, grams of fat, and carbs. Okay? Given the number of grams, she can determine the number of calories consumed for both fat and why do I keep saying that? Carbohydrates. So the carb calories that you have taken in are the grams, the carb grams. So you would add those all together. Times 9, and then that tells you how many calories and carbs you've eaten, and fat calories is equal to the fat grams, so you would add all of those together times 4. Okay, we have some input variables. We ask the user for the amount of fat and carbs consumed during the day. Calculate how many that calculates to. Okay. Here is some interaction of how your program should look. So this is sample output. Welcome to the carb calculator. This is all just display statements. What is your name? That's an input. Okay. Hello, Tim. Remember, replace that variable. So you're going to have a variable that says patient name, maybe. So patient name and that's a string. That's how you can initialize strings. We only did numbers before, so we'll put spaces, put a space here, or at this point say no name until you get down there and the user enters it. Let's do carbs first. Enter the number of carbs you consume for each meal. Breakfast, and then you put that, you do an input for that. Lunch, input for that. Dinner, input for that. And snack, input for that. And then you do the same for fat. So it looks like you're going to have to create a variable for each one of these. Now, let's see. I'm going to have, you can call this assignment 3. We'll change that. Let me just look at the details. Okay, so we can call our variable whatever we want. So if I have, I'm going to create a variable called breakfast fat. And that will store the fat grams I've eaten, or the patient name is eaten for breakfast. Okay, then you're going to do the same for lunch fat. Same thing. Store the fat eaten for lunch. Do one for dinner fat and snack fat. So you'll have 2 more there. Carbs. Do one for breakfast carb that you've eaten. We'll just initialize that to 0. So that will store the carbohydrates that you've taken in for breakfast. And do the same for lunch carbs, dinner carbs, snack carbs. Okay. So we have, well, how many variables are we up to now? Patient name, and then 8, 4 for fat, 4 for carbs. So we have 9. I have 9 variable count so far. Go back up. That I'm gathering just from this. And then the results. Okay, so we need to calculate, this I need to make a little bit bigger. But we need to calculate, let's do this. Landscape. There we go. We need to calculate how many, okay, if we add them all up, so we need a variable for total fat, and we need a variable for total carbs. Because see, it says you consume this many grams of carbs. Well, that is that 110 example that's there. That's these numbers added. 450, this is that numbers added. So we need to add those up. And then it's equivalent to how many calories that you've eaten. So we're going to create a variable for maybe total fat taken in, and that will store, you know, your fat intake for the whole day. Total carbs will store the carb intake for the total day. And then we need to figure out how many carb calories we've taken in. So what, I think there was a suggested variable name. Carb calories equals carb grams, which I called total. Okay. Now again, if you call your variable something different, that's fine. Carb calories. Okay, we know our formulas, so we're going to create carb calories is equal to 0. But when we calculate that, it will be total carbs times 9, and then we'll create a fat calories variable as well. Okay? So, input variables will be the following. You can call them something different. Patient name, breakfast fat, lunch fat, dinner fat, snack fat. Breakfast carb, lunch carb, dinner carb, snack carb. Total fat, which is all of those added together. Total carbs, which is all of these added together. Carb calories. Okay. So now these are our calculated variables. So we have 9 input variables and 4 calculated variables, as far as I can tell. Okay, I think that's right. Now, how do we want to break this apart in modules? So let's look at our suggestions here. Right here. The first thing you need to do is create a module called obtain meal data. So a subroutine called obtain meal data that presents the input for all of those 9 variables. Each number should be stored in a variable. Assume that only integers into the program. Be sure that the numbers are not tied to any particular unit of measure. Okay, whatever. Sorry. Use names like that or lunch amount. Okay. Makes it more okay. Okay, there's one module that we'll have. So what I would do is have a module. When I look at this program, I would have a module called obtain, what did he call it? Obtain meal data. Okay, now that's my call. So when I code that one, I'd say sub obtain meal data and n subs, just so I know. And in here, I would take in all 9 variables. What is your name? What did you, everything that's here. Here's one question, here's 4 more, here's 4 more. So those are the 9. That's your 9 input. So take them all in there. And then you do your calculations. So I would personally, now this is me, you can do yours a little differently as long as you use modules. I would have one that did my calc grams, or I could calc, how about we just call it calc the calories and we'll do them all in here. So calc the calories. See, I did it again. No parentheses there. And then end the sub. But up here, I would call it calc calories. And parentheses up there. And then in here, that's where you would do your formulas to calculate the totals. So one example was we had a variable called total carbs. So we had 3 things that we're going to calculate. Total carbs is equal to the breakfast carb plus the lunch carb I didn't create all these variables yet, so it's not there. Plus the dinner carb plus the snack carb, okay? Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to just say X, and so on, and so on. I don't want that. Okay, and so on. So add it up, add up the total carbs, add up the total fat as the breakfast fat plus carb fat plus dinner fat plus snack fat, and then you're going to calculate the calories. So carb calories, we call that in fat calories. Carb calories is equal to total carbs times whatever that number was, 9. And then calculate fat calories as the total fat times 4 was the other number. My last subroutine I would have would be my display. So display data or whatever you want to do. Oops, no parentheses. And then remember to call it up here. Display. There we go. That's how I would address this assignment. How I would break it down. So read through the assignment again. Here's kind of my start of my pseudocode. Make sure you meet all of the requirements, the things that it asks for. Put all your variables up here, initialize them to 0, or if it's a string, a name, something like that. Main, I would have 3. I broke mine apart into 3 modules. You can break it apart into more if you want, however you want to do it. If you want more, if you only want 1, but you have to break it apart into modules. Then for whatever call you have, make sure you have the subroutines that do the appropriate things. Make sure you include sample output, save that, turn it in, and you're good to go. So I hope that helps with the assignment. Make sure you read all of the requirements carefully, and I'll format this this dietitian program in a pretty format. So thanks, good luck with it. Start early, give yourself enough time.